Hi, Leigh.
Hi, Fi. How are we? Are we well?
I'm thriving and surviving. Just hanging on in there.
Yeah.
But I have an emotional support cup of tea, so feeling pretty good about that.
Amazing. Very, very important. Well, I'm very excited to dive into a movie episode today.
Yes. Hello and welcome, listeners, to another very, very special episode of Queer Girls Watch. Leigh and myself, we're still kind of feeling a need to kind of bury the head under the sand a little bit.
Yeah.
Just pretend that maybe the news is some sort of twisted fiction that we could just put down if we don't want to read it.
Kind of George Orwell novel that one might study in school but isn't actually real.
Yeah, like it's why are we being given like forced reading? No, I don't want to do it. I want to skip school. I want to drop out. We're going to continue our sabbatical from the West Wing and go back to the movies. And boy, oh boy, Leigh, we've got a treat this week.
We've got such a treat. I'm so excited to be back in the year 1999 and coming back with us back in time to 1999 are two of my favorite podcasters, two of Queer Girls Watch's favorite podcasters. They have gotten me through some rough emotional moments, I have to say, with their discussions of Jane Austen. We have Becca and Molly of Pod and Prejudice with us today.
Hi! Oh my gosh, we're so flattered to be so well received here, and also so happy to be here to talk about 1999 circa 1972.
Yeah, so excited. Thank you so much for having us.
There's so much in the timeline to unpack. And I have to say, I'm so grateful to you, Becca, for suggesting our film today, because I'd never heard of it or seen it before. And I cannot believe I had never, it immediately in now one of my like all-time favorite movies. And in a sentence I never thought I would say as a lesbian, I love Dick.
Yeah, it is a movie that on first hearing about it, the movie Dick, you have to take a moment to sort of be like, I can't Google that. I can't figure out what it's about without exposing myself in ways I don't want to be exposed. But once you understand the movie and what it's about, the name makes sense, and it changes your life and gives you the sort of American patriotism that is lacking in so much of what we do nowadays, because we're not Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams in 1974. It's,
unfortunately,
terrible.
We
can all dream. I just don't. No one's making movies like this anymore.
They're not. It's groundbreaking. It's investigative journalism at its finest. Also, I have to say that when I went to watch the movie, and I was like, I don't know what streaming service it's on, so I'm just gonna let Apple TV figure it out. And I went and I like pressed the little voice to text button and I said, Dick. Siri was like, I don't know how to help you with that. So I had to go to each individual streaming service and just say Dick until I found it.
I have to say,
it's never not funny. Like,
no.
It's a funny word. Leigh and I were watching the film separately. We were just like intermittently messaging each other, being like, "Oh my god, Dick's amazing."
It never would have occurred to me. This film is girlhood. Like, it's just pure girlhood. And it never would have occurred to me to make a film about the Watergate scandal and Richard Nixon that is just purely about female friendship, actually.
Yeah, what actually teenage girls need to really like thrive is Richard Nixon as a staunch antagonist. The titular Dick, for those who are not familiar with the movie, is just Richard Nixon, but it leads to just about every single beautiful joke that you possibly could make with the word dick throughout the movie and in our coverage already. And I'm assuming going forward, we're just going to have to continue to talk about dick.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, we must. It's what the people want.
Yeah.
Also, never thought I'd see a film that was like Richard Nixon as teenage heartthrob.
Yeah, truly. We'll dive into this. because I've got a lot of thoughts and feelings about the sexualization of Richard Nixon. But what I want to know is when we're talking about the movie Dick, the movie synopsis available from the internet is 2 girls wander away from a White House tour and turn into the president's secret advisors. However, things become chaotic when the president eats marijuana-baked cookies.
It's very spot on, actually.
I mean, that's literally the plot of the film, like every part of it in there. But I kind of, that wasn't what I was expecting when you guys offered up this movie.
So
I didn't expect the marijuana storyline, which is huge. It's a huge part of it. How stoned everyone is most of the time is a large part of the plot.
It was the 70s.
Yeah, well, yeah. Famously the 70s and the 90s, which is awesome. Yeah. I feel like the internet has just given us the plot point, but I feel like if either of you could come up with a little movie synopsis for us, if you were to put it into your own words, what does Dick mean to you?
I've been asking myself that question since puberty. The movie Dick means to me, I should preface this with saying that like I've been watching this film since I was like 7 years old or so. And it is a movie that formed exactly how I understand the Watergate scandal in general. But I would say if I were going to tagline this movie, for those who might not know the movie, it's what if 2 teenage girls were Deep Throat and exposed Richard Nixon's corruption and scandals. And so if I were to tagline this movie, it would be teenage girls are smarter than anyone in American politics.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Accurate. Yeah.
Yes.
And specifically without trying to be.
Yeah, I was going to say accidentally uncover. I mean, almost accidentally. Like for most of it, it's accidental. And then they get angry. And that anger drives them, specifically angry about him kicking a dog. Because we have to protect Checkers at all costs. But when they get angry, they become diabolical. And I love it.
Yeah. I mean, like, the real kind of, maybe one of the lead protagonists in this film is Checkers the dog. And we shouldn't forget that.
No.
I would really like to give a moment for the performance of the dog actor playing Checkers. He really brings a lot to his performance, I would say.
Me. Like when he was listening back to the tapes and Richard Nixon, Dick, said like fucking damn dog or whatever he said, and it went to Checkers and he tilted his head like, broke me. Sobbed.
So the movie tagline that they give is he was tricky, they were better.
And they were. They really were.
and they were. Now, this shows how much I know about the Watergate scandal, because I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? What do you mean he was tricky? Because I didn't know Tricky Dicky, right?
Dick.
Is this the Tricky Dick? It's really not something that gets talked about enough when we're talking about previous presidents, that one of them did go by Dick as his name.
Yeah, it is crucial American history. I also think this movie benefits from like a little bit of context, because you guys have been living, laughing, loving in the West Wing made in the 90s. In the Clinton administration. And there was a very specific idea of what politics were in that time. This was made in 1999 in like one of Clinton's last years in office. And it is about the last time a president was impeached, because for those who might not know, Bill Clinton was also impeached for perjury for lying about having sexual relations with a very young woman, Monica Lewinsky, which we now see in a light of maybe the president of the United States has some really inappropriate power over a 20-something woman who's working for him. And maybe that's something we should explore. But at the time, the big scandal around it was that this president was lewd. This president was frivolous. And this president had lied on the stand about having sex with this woman or sexual relations with this woman. There's like specifics that people know about the sexual act in the Oval Office. So this movie kind of is the culmination of like how stupid scandals in Washington are. and how, in fact, like it is ahead of its time in sort of understanding like when young women like bisect politics and political scandal, they're the heroes generally.
Becca, what year did that happen? The Clinton, when did Monica Lewinsky thing happen?
It was earlier in the 90s.
Because like this movie then is almost I mean, it is a commentary on everything that you just said, but it's also like almost it's like ahead of its time in defense of Monica Lewinsky. Because the way that everyone in the White House is so gross with these two girls throughout the film is like, oh, the men are always the problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, hey, sir, what are you doing with those girls? Not like, hey, girls, what are you doing here? It's more just like, who brought you here and under what pretenses were you brought into the White House?
I believe the direct quote is, who are these little girls, Henry? I don't know, but it looks unconstitutional to me.
Yes.
That is actually a joke I get more because some background, I'm a lawyer and I've loved this movie and I've always loved this movie. And then I went to law school. That joke is something I now understand because I studied US constitutional law. The joke is that he's appointed then the White House dog walkers. And when you're appointing people to work in the executive branch of the government, there is a divorce between the people who are political appointees and like some of like the lower level employees. And you have like under the Constitution, some of those people need to be confirmed by the Senate, by Congress. And some of the people can be hired and fired by the president himself. And so the joke is that he's like, it's probably fine that he just hired these two because he didn't go through the Senate.
Well, that's a deleted scene that we're robbed of, which is our girls in the Senate. Because realistically, that's what I want to see now.
They would,
Becca,
yeah.
I know that you are a lawyer, so this is literally like what you do for a living, but you have really blown my mind with the context that this is like also a commentary on the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Like, I think, you're a genius. Wow. I've got a whole new level of appreciation now. Wow.
And I double checked it. And the news of the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke in 98 and this film came out in 99.
They were like, we know what we have to do.
And we have to do it fast.
We're going to take all of the historical context and we're going to put it out there.
Well, Bill Clinton lied about having sex with Monica Lewinsky before that. So like this was in the public eye for a long time, but the actual news broke that he did in 98. So this was like a long arching scandal that like lived over the Clinton administration the way that Watergate lived over the Nixon administration for 2 years, which is another piece of context. This movie technically takes place over 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, right? But I think kind of also over a week, it feels like.
Yeah.
So the president was high for half of his
second
for the entire second term.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I would love to get into our thoughts around casting on this film because we've got to talk about our two girls.
Yes.
And I think the fact that there's two of them is what makes this like a movie about girlhood. Because if there was just one, if it was just Kirsten Dunst or just Michelle Williams, it would feel so much more like icky and scary for them. But because they've got each other, it's like this is about best friendship goals. And so actually, I totally trust that they're both safe because they're together.
They could do
100%.
anything. Yeah, they have each other's backs. And their friendship means everything to me because they're both like cute little blondes that I feel like from aesthetics alone would be the popular girls in school, but they don't have any other friends because they're fucking weirdos. And they love each other for exactly who they are, and they will do everything together, and they don't care that nobody else hangs out with them. And it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
That's my favorite bit too, which is just like they're really weird, but they have each other and like they will always have each other. And that's kind of like that's all I want.
Yeah.
I would follow them into fire.
Same.
I also love this because like not only are they beautiful enough to be popular girls in high school, they both famously play like popular pretty girls in high school. because Michelle Williams is famous for her role as Jen on Dawson's Creek, who's not like popular, but is like the pretty girl who like is above the roles. And Kirsten Dunst playing Torrance Shipman, head cheerleader in Bring It On.
Which came out the following year.
Exactly. So this is pre Kirsten Dunst blowing up on the public scene. And this is post Michelle Williams starring in Dawson's Creek. So like Michelle Williams being a bigger name than Kirsten Dunst in this context is also really fun and weird. But like the fact that the two of them, first of all, this convinced me that both of them are comedic geniuses. And
Oh my God, yeah.
They need to be put in every comedy.
Literally, I
But
wrote
Michelle
down,
Williams specifically, we never see her play comedic roles, right?
Yeah.
she's such a like dramatic
It's drama
leading
all the way
lady.
down.
And like and I think also I don't know that I've ever truly given Kirsten Dunst her flowers for like what an incredible comedian she is, because I also watched Drop Dead Gorgeous for the first time recently, and I just think she is kind of slightly suffered from a little bit of like misogyny against young blonde women, in that she's not treated as a kind of like serious performer, but like she has real comedic chops.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. And I think the thing that is super tough, and the script was doing so much work, but you kind of need these two amazing actors to really make it pop, is playing dumb is hard. Like playing stupid is really hard, and it's really hard to be funny. And when those roles are written for men, a lot of it like relies on like really bawdy jokes or like kind of stoner comedy. But then like when you come to making it about what they're like supposed to be 16,
15.
we think 15. Yeah, 15-year-old girls. It's like, what makes 15-year-old girls funny? And I think just the fact that they're played, like Betsy and Arlene are the most honest girls you'll ever meet. They wear their hearts on their sleeves. They feel everything so much. And kind of all they care about is like pop music and clothes. That's the fact that Michelle Williams and Kirsten Dunst took that and made every single line of dialogue funny is incredible to me.
And they really they gave the characters so much heart, and like they're dumb girls for sure, but they're also they're dumb in the way that like they don't become a caricature of that. Like they're clueless, but they're not stupid. Like they actually are very emotionally smart, and they are able to like get to the heart of what's going on, and they know right from wrong, and like they're able to learn, and like just because they don't know everything about American politics, like they're like, wait a minute, the president shouldn't kick dogs.
Yeah. I mean, let's not talk about the room full of shredders, but definitely he shouldn't.
Yeah, that went straight
shouldn't
over my
kick
head. I
checkers.
had no idea what was going on with Watergate. I had to text Becca after.
I gave her like a little synopsis of the scandal.
Amazing. I feel like I'd really like to talk about Richard Nixon himself. The actor it's such a good impression.
Yeah, Cher's dad from Clueless, same comedian.
That's kind of how I knew him.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Oh,
Everyone's
my God.
in this film.
I was literally going to say this film. So this film, basically, I'm like, okay, so we were in the wake of Clueless. Am I correct? Is that kind of the same year? So we're like in that kind of same vine.
A couple years later, yeah.
We're like 3 years after Clueless at
yeah,
this point.
Clueless is 1995, I want to say. 5 or
So
6.
we're in the wake of Clueless, but we're also walking so that Elle Woods can run and go to Harvard. Like it's just wow, what a
Yes.
time.
100%. This is like 2 years before Legally Blonde.
What an amazing time to be like a young woman going to the movies. Like so much stuff was being made for like young women to watch that was like funny and smart and about interesting, weird girls. And like no one makes movies for teenage girls anymore.
Yeah, this was when I was like 7 years old, 8 years old in like 2000, and like I did not see all these movies in theaters, but I certainly like 2 years later had all the like
You guys,
VHS.
I'm so sorry. I'm still stuck on this Clueless thing. The transformation this man made. I was just like,
like a big chops comedy actor. Like he's taking character actor to new levels because, like, you're right. It's a full bait and switch from him,
unrecognizable,
going from Cher's dad to literally the president of the United States of America. Also, just a shout out, just to a little cameo from Will Ferrell,
main character, I would say.
I was watching this with my fiance, and the Woodward and Bernstein of it all. We were watching the two of them interact, and he was like, how much do these guys look like Woodward and Bernstein? And that scene in the movie when they're pulling up the picture of like Woodward and Bernstein for the newspapers when they break the story and everything, like we pulled up the real picture and they look so much like Woodward and Bernstein. It's so good.
I mean, they do. And also the hairstyling is bang on.
Yep. Really fun trivia fact about Carl Bernstein. You know who his ex-wife is?
No.
Nora Ephron.
No.
Yeah.
No. So no. Does that mean that Heartburn is about him?
It might be. I don't. When did Heartburn come out?
Oh my God. Okay. So I've recently read Heartburn for the first time. Okay, so Heartburn came out in the 80s.
Okay, I think.
So maybe she married him after that. So maybe her first husband was the one that she's writing about.
I'll Google this. Is Carl Bernstein?
Because her husband that she is like splitting up from in Heartburn is a journalist who's based in DC.
That is about Carl Bernstein.
Wow.
Oh my God. Whoa.
Wow.
I mean, I would really recommend watching Heartburn the movie because it's kind of like a semi-autobiographical novel that she wrote. But the film is starring Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson, which is wild to me as a kind of romantic couple.
That is
casting wise.
Yeah, that is a weird energy to put together.
That looks like a horror film, and the cover of it looks like a horror film.
It's just them lying on a hospital bed, cradling a baby. But I just feel like, don't put Jack Nicholson in Scrubs because we're just always going to see One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
And that's concerning.
Yeah.
Going really quick back to the actor who plays Dick. He's like, it to me, and listen, I've never heard Richard Nixon talk before, but he sounds like a caricature of Jimmy Stewart. He's like, like that kind of old-timey vocal that he has going on.
There's a lot of kind of the like, what do you say, old girls?
Yeah.
I love his performance, and I feel like actually you've created a really good kind of segue for us to talk about this particular depiction of Richard Nixon as someone who enjoys marijuana cookies. So when Betsy and Arlene are kind of hanging out at, I believe it's Betsy's family home, they decide to make cookies, the kind of famous family recipe of cookies. And I guess the best place for us to start here is, why does Betsy's brother keep his weed in a jar full of walnuts in their kitchen?
It's a really good question.
It's a good question.
I see the brother seems to have like done a lot of drugs that are much more intense than marijuana, because he's like trying to find new ways of doing drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But like, short of poisoning his family on purpose, and also like, not that I would know from personal experience or anything, but that's just like not how you make marijuana like active in cookies.
You have to stew it in the oil.
Yeah. And then use the oil in the cookies.
Yeah, they're just eating chunks of weed.
Can't taste it.
No, and so the narrative that the cookies are so good that they are asking the girls to come back every day is bonkers.
Yeah.
However, I will say that I enjoy the fact that we're making this kind of concept that everyone in the White House was high, and also visiting dignitaries and politicians from other countries.
Yeah. And I think like the whole thing is building to the punchline where they find out that they've been feeding the president weed cookies, and the brother just goes, oh, maybe that's why he's so paranoid. So the idea that Nixon's paranoia covering up the Watergate scandal was tied to the fact that he was eating weed cookies every day.
It's beautiful.
That was ingenious. That was completely ingenious.
That's amazing writing.
God tier.
What I don't understand is that the entire White House staff, who are grown adults and have definitely had weed before, are accepting weed cookies from 15-year-olds and knowingly, because they taste like marijuana, every day being like, come back and bring those cookies. Ooh.
So fun fact, in this time period, and still somewhat to this day, to get a job in the federal government, you have to be, like in the White House, a lot of people have to be security screened. And you have to like, they check all of your like relations with like foreigners. They check like your parents' citizenship. Like it's really intense. And one of the things that like is disqualifying is smoking weed.
Are you telling me that the president of the United States, former like other presidents, we don't talk about this one?
Actually, no, because the president doesn't need to be background checked. The president's elected to office. But if you work for the president, you are often background checked. So like this is just like when you're getting that like high level clearance, if you're someone who's getting hired to that position, you probably have not smoked weed.
Which I was going to say, there was definitely a thing about the fact that Obama had like had a spliff in college.
Well, I mean,
that people tried to make a big thing out of.
Well, Clinton famously was asked whether he'd ever smoked weed, and he said, I took a hit, but I didn't inhale.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Iconic. Such a wet response.
Honestly, I would just rather that he lied and said he never had, but to say that he took a hit but didn't inhale is the saddest thing I've ever heard. I would be like, that's resigned.
I wonder how do we still have like a sexy reputation after that? That's just like so off-putting.
That's a really good question. But like people used to care whether or not people smoked weed, except in Hollywood where everyone was smoking weed. And so like this, like it is kind of like in my brain, I'm like, it's feasible that these people who work in the White House literally didn't know they were ingesting drugs and didn't know the feeling of ingesting drugs. Although it is,
because they, you know,
it's probably ridiculous, but it is it is not unreasonable to think that none of those people had smoked weed before.
Wow.
I will also say one of my favorite plot points in this film is that the girlies inspire John Dean, Richard Nixon's legal counsel, to testify by invoking girl code.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I should.
He's the one who he puts his hands over his mouth and he's like, I'm just as bad as them.
Exactly. Yeah. That is a true, real historical figure who testified against Nixon.
Iconic.
I think maybe we should, because we're talking about the girls, let's discuss teenage crushes for a little sec, because I feel like that's a big part of this movie. Is specifically kind of Arlene and her crushes. I feel like Betsy's a little bit more free and easy.
Yeah.
She's just, you know,
Betsy's giving
she's a gal about town.
a little bit of a gay vibe. The entire movie.
There is some queer energy in this friendship for sure. Like one of those friendships that you look back on after you come out and you're like, that was a really intense friendship.
Yeah.
And you meet like 20 years down the line and like one of them's gay and the other one's bi and they're like, oh.
That's what that was.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
And Betsy's the gay one and Arlene's the bi one.
There's
as
no
evidenced
question
by her very intense male crushes as a bi myself who had very intense male crushes growing up.
Yeah.
I
But
related.
it takes attraction to men to have such unhinged crushes, honestly. Because teenage girls who like men, like there is no stopping the hormones, and the hormones go where they flow. And here it starts on Bobby Sherman. I meant to Google who this man was beforehand. But he's like a 90s heartthrob of some sort. And the
he is cute. He is cute.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's cute, but then like what we're really getting at here is that like as the movie progresses, Arlene develops like a hyperfixation crush on Richard Nixon, which is also really funny because he's famously like super ugly.
Yeah, like he's famously just like a big, weird looking dude.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But also having an unhinged crush on someone who's not attractive is also girlhood. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
Specifically, like quite old men.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I famously, even as a lesbian, had quite a big crush on BBC's Poirot's sidekick.
Yes.
Hastings.
Oh my
Hastings.
I
God.
loved Hastings.
But also, again, a deeply gay-coded character.
Oh, I would have a crush on him too. He's cute. I get it.
And
Yeah, I love that.
I was watching this with my fiance, and when they were writing the like letter about how she should go on a date with Bobby Sherman, he turned to me and he was like, "Was that you as a teenage girl?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean,
Yeah.
like, but like the unhinged shit teenage girls do when they have crushes, like we're talking about driving by a boy's house, like just to see where he lives, like creating like aliases on the internet so you can talk to him without knowing it's you, like obsessively sending fan mail, like the entire boy band culture, like
Yeah.
and to put that all on Richard Nixon, like again, I'm like I feel like I'm going like full history nerd, but like there's a debate in 1960 between Richard Nixon and John Kennedy that was the first televised debate in history, and famously that is like why Richard Nixon lost the election, because if you have John Kennedy there, who
Is hot.
was like
Yeah.
stone cold fox, next to a guy who was like Grace and talked like a character of Jimmy Stewart, as Molly just so eloquently put it.
Thank you.
That is why he lost back then. And to have him 10 years later be the object of like obsession by a teenage girl is like perfect. It's perfect.
It's so
perfect.
genius.
And also, what's girlhood about it is that, like, obviously, Betsy figures it out. She figures out that Arlene has a crush on Dick. And there's no judgment. Like, at first you can see she's kind of like, huh? But then she's like, you should tell him how you feel. She's just mad she didn't tell her. She was like, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
But she's not going to judge your love.
That I love Dick.
And the making of the scrapbook.
Yeah.
And just being like,
Oh my God.
let me show you what I've put together about our relationship that is not real.
Yeah.
Here's just things I've cut out of magazines.
And she's like, wow, that looks so realistic. Like, she's so supportive.
I think it's important for us to discuss regarding the crush on Richard Nixon, the voice message that Arlene leaves for him on the recording machine in the Oval Office.
It's an Olivia Newton-John
That's
song.
bugging.
It's the fact that at every point we're bringing in elements of the Watergate scandal into the ridiculous girlhood of it all. And the fact that she's recording this ridiculous message for Richard Nixon on the tapes of the "we have the tapes" fame is so iconic.
Yeah.
And it's also, again, so authentic to think that like the only way she can confess her love is through an Olivia Newton-John song recorded on the love of her life's tapes that he uses to record all his conversations about how he's paying millions of dollars to cover up a felony. Like,
but the way this is done in the film is so brilliant because they've come to walk checkers and they come into the office and Anna Gasteyer is at the desk and she says,
she says something like, "I'm so busy taking care of the president of the United States, I forget to take care of God's other creatures."
Yes, that's exactly. Wow, you memorized it. That was word for word. So she says that, and then she leaves and just hands them the leash, which is stuck in the drawer. So they're like pulling, and they're like, "Oh fuck!" And so they go around the desk and they yank, and the drawer comes open, and there's the tape recorder, and of course Betsy's first thought is, Arlene, you should record your feelings for him. So she takes the dog and she comes back and she's like, you've been talking for 18 minutes. We need to go. Oh man. And then she like, when do they panic and try to delete it and then stumble upon the tapes?
Oh, they actually don't try to delete it. They actually just try to make sure it recorded. So they rewind. And then they rewind too far. And you hear him like talking about disappearing someone to South America.
Triggering in this present moment.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
Jesus Christ. And that's the brilliance of this, is that like this, like without getting too much into the trauma that is currently US politics, like this is the amount of seriousness that I now feel like anyone who works in the White House deserves. And so like the level of like bumbling that's happening with all these guys that allows two dog walkers to come in and figure out everything on them it was borderline therapeutic to watch.
Yeah.
But like then like he screams like some ethnic epithets against Jewish people and then kicks the dog. And like honestly, kicking the dog just does translate as bad as all the other actions on there in that moment, because we're watching Checkers.
Yeah. Oh, and that's when he does his little head tilt.
Oh, wow. What a film. What a film.
It's so good.
I also think it's important, just while we're on the subject of Arlene's unhinged crush, to just take a moment for the kind of L-word style sex dream fantasy montage with Richard Nixon on the beach.
On the horse.
On the horse.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't expect us to go into a dream sequence, but it's one of the best dream sequences I've ever seen.
And again, this is why this film is pitched perfectly, because like it's not sexual, but it's also not sexual.
It's sexual if you don't know what sex is exactly.
Exactly. Which is just like, it's just gorgeous, where she's like, oh, I'm like hyper fixated on this adult grown man, and my dream scenario would be him on a horse on the beach, like, and I'd just also be there.
And I'm just also there. Yeah.
And he would leave his wife for me.
Yeah.
And he would build a sand castle of the White House in the sand for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a point in the film where I feel like it's doesn't Betsy like explain sex to Arlene, and then they both scream out of Betsy's bedroom window?
Yeah.
One of the weirdest pieces of the Watergate scandal is that it is named after a pornographic, like the inside source in the White House was named after a porn movie. And it is the type of thing a teenage girl would do. But I believe the actual story is that the Washington Post reporter, like the manager of the Washington Post at the time, was the one who like called him Deep Throat as a joke because he was like a deep source. And then like the nickname stuck. And it is funny that like it is based on a porn movie, and like it feels like it's out of a prank call.
It does.
It does. Like, so Betsy and Arlene are on the phone to the Washington Post, and they're like, can you tell us what name you want? And Betsy's brother is getting told off for watching pornography.
Yeah, he went to the movies to a porno because like this is pre like VHS tape.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's gone to like they used to show porn in a theater, and like he went to this theater to see a porn and got caught.
Wow.
I feel like I kind of love Betsy's brother. Like,
oh yeah.
I feel like I would have got on with him at high school, you know?
Yeah, he reminded me of a lot of kids I went to high school with.
Yeah.
Just like constantly high.
Yeah.
And then just like, oh shit, I'm being drafted. What?
Oh,
yeah. He cracked me up. He was really funny.
I also think it's, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's also really important that we take a moment for the Ryan Reynolds cameo in this film, which I did not foresee.
Fresh out of Canada. You know, he like, okay, so yeah, because this is going to roll back, I think, to what we were discussing about potentially Betsy's sexuality. Because she's like, yeah, I'll absolutely make out with him so that you can like find the tapes. And are they in, whose house are they in again?
They're in
whose house are they?
the guy, his lawyer, who has the tapes.
Yeah, the council. Yeah. So they at this point, the girls have cracked that the tapes are important and they want to get the tapes to the Washington Post because they're angry at Dick for all the things that he's done. And also as a subplot for why they're angry with him, because they want him to stop the war. But that's not the main reason why they're angry with him, which is great.
Yeah. Well, he does stop the war early in the film
because they asked.
Yeah, exactly. So they are responsible for the pulling the fall of Saigon in this scenario.
So they're going to break into this house and get the tapes for the Washington Post. And there's just a young man washing a car outside, and that young man is Ryan Reynolds.
Blake Lively's Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. And Betsy's like, I'm going to take one for the team. I'm going to just pretend that I know him and then make out with him while you go and find these tapes. And I do feel like the make-out session that happens is the fucking weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Why does
Leigh, can you talk about the hair?
Yeah, there's a
thing?
moment where he's kind of on the bed and she's leant over him and she's just kind of like gently swishing her hair over his face and torso. And the way that gave me a visceral flashback to because I had like quite a boy crazy phase as a teenager before I came out as gay. I had so many boyfriends. And that's 100% something that I did. It's unhinged. But I 100% did that. I would like kind of trail my hair over them.
Wow.
To what effect? Like, what did you think it was doing? Like,
It probably feels nice on their face.
yeah, I mean, I also feel like I'm not judging you for it because, I mean, would that I have ever, no one wanted to make out with me. So I didn't have any like teenage make out experiences. But I feel like if I did, I would have done that.
Yeah, I've never seen it portrayed in cinema before, but it really took me back to a moment and a place in time.
Well,
Was it reassuring to see it,
I found it a little unsettling, I'm not
Kirsten
going to
Dunst?
lie.
yeah, I think it might be a way to tell us that she is going to grow up gay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
That might be an
for sure.
exclusively baby gay thing to do.
Yeah. I also think she just is generally disgusted by him and all the weird stuff that he says. And then he does a beer
Why does
bong.
he have a beer bong in his room?
It's also like not his house. He's just like a friend of the son. of
Yeah.
this-
Oh, right. It's
of
not
this-
his
of The
room.
Joint Chiefs system. Yeah. So you're like, why couldn't they have just made him his son?
I think it was funnier. I mean, well, there had to be a reveal. Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Actually.
It's all really interesting. I guess because it gives us a moment where someone calls Nixon a fascist,
Which was
is fun.
satisfying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But also, like, I mean, it was weird because the dude was like, yeah, no, my dad doesn't work for Nixon. He's an arms manufacturer. And I was like, yeah, better.
But then there's like that moment of panic, like, are we in the wrong room? But then they're not. So it didn't really have a huge payoff, actually.
Well, I think it just is giving us the tension of Betsy figuring it out in the moment, which Arlene had the easier job here because for the fact that the guy's got the like incriminating tapes over his office everywhere, she just was able to walk into his home and take them. And not only that, he's on the phone and he literally says the words, yes, and I have a really incriminating tape right here. And he puts it down on the desk.
But then when they almost get caught, he's like, Betsy's trying to hide her face when they run into each other. And she's like swishing her hair in front of her face and he's like trying to see her face, but Arlene's standing behind him. And then when he sees her face and they recognize each other, they both just start screaming and sprint out of the house and then say, kiss my ass. And it's
When he calls them bitches.
He calls them bitches and they mime kiss my and then slap their butts. It's iconic.
I'm obsessed with how shocked they are at being called bitches as well. They're literally like stealing from his house and they're still like,
How dare
I am
you?
not a bitch.
But I love how they don't cuss
Yeah.
at all. Like they won't even say the word ass. They mime it instead.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's just, I love them.
There are several times where their solution to like a scary situation is just to scream and run away. And I really rate that.
yeah, it's truly like the right solution in so many situations.
Yes. I feel like something that has stuck with me through watching this film and I keep coming back to is the soundtrack is amazing.
So good.
There are so many incredible needle drops in this film, like one after the other. I mean, when everyone's high on weed brownies, I think we've got Sister Sledge playing, which is incredible. And then it's when Nixon is resigning. The underscore is "You're so vain."
Perfect needle drop.
Perfection.
It was a good day at work for someone when they came up with that. I just think that that's perfect.
Dancing Queen in the
And then
credits.
And their American flag outfits. Wow.
Don't even get me started. I want them. I want to wear it on my body.
We're going to go in on this, but I think maybe it is time to dive into the fashion in this film.
Yeah.
There's so much to discuss. There's so many good clothes.
Yes. I mean, the thing that's really like striking about this film is it's the 1970s, so they're in period costume, but it's the 1970s done through 1999. And there are so many bucket hats and so many things that like indicate to us that this was indeed a film made in 1999 rather than in 1972 through 74. Like it is the amalgamation of those two eras of style. Honestly, I think the best 2 decades in the last 50 years, in my personal opinion, for style. It makes the whole thing perfect.
Yeah, it's like that kind of like 1970s tailoring, but like meets rave culture.
Meets Y2K. It's just so good. I think some of my personal favorites were Kirsten's checkered coat with the sunflower baubles in her hair. And there's a Baker Boy hat, which to your point, Becca, very Y2K, not 1970s. Also, Arlene at one point is in like a snakeskin trouser and a peace necklace and like a suede waistcoat and turtleneck.
It's such a good outfit. That's her roller rink outfit when she screams, "I love Dick."
The roller ring.
Oh my God, we didn't talk about the roller rink. One of my favorite moments. And when Betsy turns to Arlene and she says, "There's nothing you want to confess to me, your best and only friend."
Yeah.
I don't know why this film doesn't have the same kind of like place in camp queer culture as like Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion.
Yeah.
I'm just
it is
so
interesting,
baffled
isn't
that
it?
I've never heard of this film before. Anyway.
I love their PJs.
Oh,
They have like several different sets of PJs that they wear, which I really love. I also love that as friends, they have color palettes each.
Yeah.
And they respect each other's color palettes.
Yeah.
They don't encroach.
No, there's one
yeah.
where they're like fully like one's wearing purple and one's wearing blue, and it's just like their full outfit is of that color. The one they're like running through the White House lawn in their outfits.
that's the scene I was gonna flag because Betsy's little like A-line pale blue shift that she wears when they confront Richard Nixon about the Watergate scandal and kicking his dog. That is one of those moments where it's an exact like 1999 meets 70s because the dress is super 70s and then her hair is a slicked back bun with like 2 quasi chopsticks in it, which yikes. But the dress itself is stunning and Kirsten Dunst should wear that color all the time.
Totally. There's also one point where Kirsten Dunst is in like the night clothes, and then she just throws on like a purple vinyl trench, and it's iconic.
I love that you're holding scissors.
I don't know why I'm holding scissors. I need to stop playing with the scissors.
Leigh, please. That's so intense.
Leigh just pulled out a pair of scissors and was just like stabbing the air.
All of us just here being like, whatever you say, Leigh, we agree. Yeah.
Also, every forehead headband that they wear,
Yes.
there's a new one in each scene. It's the kind of headband that doesn't do anything for your hair. It's just decorative for your head, your forehead.
Yeah. The kind of the sort of interpretation of flower power throughout this film. It's a broad church, a lot more plastic than I was expecting. But I'm kind of here for it. To be honest, I think I love a teen movie where every scene there is a new outfit.
Yes.
There is no repetition in this film. Every time we see these characters, they're wearing something different. And it's like a full accessorized outfit.
And also like, Arlene's room is an accessory too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Her
the
pink
set
bedroom
dressing
in the
throughout
Watergate
the film
Hotel
is
because she
incredible.
lives in the Watergate Hotel with her mum.
And no explanation about that. Oh, I think, Leigh, I think you were saying something and then you froze and then it came, I'm not sure. You were frozen for a little while.
You might just have to repeat what you said.
Yeah, we didn't hear. You probably recorded it though.
I don't know what I said. Let's move on.
Yeah. But Arlene's room in the Watergate Hotel with her little like TV, and it's just like just wild colors everywhere. It's one of those rooms that like doesn't seem like it would actually exist, but would definitely exist on the Disney Channel, you know?
Yes. And I assumed right at the start of the film that they were sisters because Arlene's room has 2 single beds in.
Oh yeah.
But I guess is that an American thing?
I think it's just because it's a hotel.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
And I definitely had friends who had like an extra bed in their room growing up for no reason whatsoever, except that like when guests came by, like there was an extra bed and it was in the kids' room. But I do agree with Molly. It's because Arlene randomly lives in the Watergate Hotel.
But there's no explanation
with her
of that.
sad mom.
Like, I feel like that's usually like the mom works for the hotel, like the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, or like something or other. But there's no explanation of why that is. And I thought maybe it would be addressed. I thought that Nixon was going to be Arlene's dad. Like,
me too.
Same.
It was never addressed.
The paternity storyline is such a red herring that Arlene's like, I never knew who my dad was. My mum said that he died in an accident and I don't believe her. And then we're like, oh my God, they're going to find out from the background check who Arlene's dad is. Is it Nixon? And it's not. It's just that her mum was telling the truth, and it's actually quite a sad story.
Yeah.
And her mum's quite sad.
Yeah.
And then gets hoodwinked by this special agent.
Terrible.
Actually devastating.
Yeah, like I think Arlene's mum has the roughest ride of it all.
Yeah,
we need
I'd
a
agree with that.
redemption arc for Arlene's mom.
Yeah.
I simply cannot move on from the fashion though before just taking a moment for their spy outfits when they dress to be the deep throat source.
They have
it's
trench
really
coats,
iconic.
Sunglasses. They don't last. The sunglasses don't last long. They're like, excuse me, and they take off their sunglasses.
There's no need to be snotty.
It's so good.
The art direction in this film in general is like a character in and of itself. I totally agree, Fee. I love a teen film that is in no way realistic about what a girl's bedroom would actually be like or what their wardrobe would actually be like. It's just like pure fantasy of being a teenage girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that. And like everyone at the high school is like a different category of stereotype. And so their costuming is like, this is the perfect jock. Like, this is the perfect cheerleader. Like, this is the perfect science nerd. Like, that for me is like, I love that kind of American movie culture.
Yeah.
Because it's not real. It's just
not at all.
this kind of like fun make-believe world.
One of my favorite lines is when Betsy is like, isn't it illegal to cut up a flag? And Arlene, or it might be the other way around, is like, not if you're going to sew it back together.
And just so great. There's like this whole montage of them sewing up these outfits, which by the way are fucking killer.
So good.
They look bomb in them. So there's like American flag outfits that they wear to go on the roof at Betsy's house and just goad Richard Nixon as he's resigning.
As Marine One flies over.
And that moment is another moment where you can tell they've been building up to that the whole movie, and they pull out that big banner and it just says you suck dick.
Love Deep Throat.
Love Deep Throat.
I actually like stood up and did a slow motion, like the Breakfast Club fist in the air when that happened. It's so satisfying. Also, it's you suck, comma, dick, obviously, but like it's so perfect. And they're so excited and they have made it so big, and he's flying over and they're pointing at it and they're like, look what we did. You suck, dick. And oh my God. And he's boiling with rage. Like he's shaking and he flips them off, and it's so satisfying. I love it.
Beautiful.
It's a perfect use of flipping someone off. It's just like they literally have ruined his entire career, and he's just like,
and they can't see him. They can't he can see them, but they can't see him. They have all the power.
Oh, iconic. Should we move on to queerest moment that never intended to be queer in this film?
Yeah. I'm so excited for this one.
For me, I think it has to go to Kirsten rushing to Arlene's aid when she falls over in the skating rink, and then suddenly they're like on top of each other for no reason.
Oh yeah.
The classic trip fall into an embrace.
Yeah. It's like very romantic. Also, just a moment for you can't let Dick ruin your life.
Yeah.
Amen.
Similarly, when they find out that they think they're being followed, Arlene is like, I am frightened of Dick.
Yes.
And for me, that was really it.
Oh my God, that's such a fun moment. Is that when they're in the library at one point, and it's when they know they're being followed, and it's just this amazing line, and I wrote it down. It's like, we have a very important book report on turquoise jewelry due in 2 days, and we can't find any books on it, and the president is having us followed, and it's much too much pressure.
Yeah. I love that the school project on the turquoise jewelry comes first as a concern.
Yeah.
Because there's no books on it, Leigh. Why are there no books on turquoise jewelry?
Such a good question. It's such a good question.
Very good. I think my queerest moment that never intended to be queer, I think, is the like whispering of what sex is into Arlene's ear, and then both of them just having to scream out of a window because it's so gross.
And it's very specifically like not just sex, it's
deep
like
throating.
Sucking dick.
Yeah.
It's deep throating. And so like the idea of putting a dick in your mouth is enough the two of them end up screaming out the window, and like I understand. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do like a little like veer off on the queer moments, because honestly, I'm gonna give it to Woodward and Bernstein in this movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
The energy of the like overly confident one versus the like really anxious one, and the like flamboyance and like bickering between the two.
The slap fighting.
The slap fighting,
Yes.
the moment towards the beginning of the film when like the film opens years later with Woodward and Bernstein getting interviewed about Deep Throat, and Bernstein almost gives it away in a moment of like fury and indignation, and Woodward goes, don't say it, you can't say it. And they kind of hold each other gently after they've been like bickering, and like that to me felt very sexual for some reason.
It really was.
Yeah. They are the odd couple.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, can I ask a question about the politics of this really quick? So they are given, first of all, a couple things. They're given the tapes, but they're not given the tapes. They're given a transcript of the tapes that these girls wrote. So like they could have written anything, but we're trusting these 15-year-old girls, first of all. Second of all, they're not going to tell anyone who Deep Throat is, but at any point, these two girls could say we were Deep Throat.
Maybe they feel cool having a secret.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they're banking on the fact that no one's going to believe that two 15-year-old girls are Deep Throat.
True. That's a good point. Okay, yeah. Well, I believed it. I texted Becca after the movie was over, and I was like, do we actually know who Deep Throat is? Like, is there a possibility that this is actually what happened? And Becca was like, unfortunately, no, we do know who Deep Throat was, and it was not these two girls.
Well, Deep Throat.
That's the saddest thing I've ever
know.
heard, because I really, really want this to be
I was
true.
I
devastated.
know. Well, Deep Throat is actually a guy named Mark Felt, and he was the deputy director of the FBI at the time. So he's a pretty like high up source. And that did not come out until 6 years after this movie. So when this movie was made,
years.
yeah, it could have been the case. And I remember the day that the like New York Times front page was like revealed Deep Throat is Mark Felt. I was like, damn it.
Oh,
I thought it was Arlene and Betsy. But he like if you're ever interested in like the Deep Throat like mystery beyond this movie, it's actually very funny because I don't think they were that subtle about who it was. For years, people apparently had been speculating it was Mark Felt. And Bernstein, like Woodward and Bernstein, their notes had MF with all of the communications, and they were like, "Oh, that's my friend." And
Sure.
it's like, okay, sure, but you called him something different to like the public, so why wouldn't it be DT like instead of MF? Like we know who Deep Throat is in this context, but he was eventually pardoned because he was actually like I think initially convicted or something in the Watergate scandal, but pardoned. Because he testified against other people. Like, I don't recall exactly what happened there, but Mark Felt gave like a ton of information to these two reporters. That being said, he was unfortunately really old when this came out and like a little bit not all there in the head, and apparently like slightly denied it. But Woodward and Bernstein were like, no, it is Mark Felt. Here's all this information that like makes it obvious it's Mark Felt. But perhaps it's a cover-up because it's actually Betsy and Arlene.
Yes. Okay. That's the world that I wish to live in.
We can accept that.
I would live for like, I think what the world needs right now is a Dick 2 with Kirsten and Michelle being like a modern day Thelma and Louise. And we just need to come back to them in like a different era of life.
At their roller disco that they open later.
Yes.
Yes.
In the White House.
With the money from, because Betsy's brother goes into pharmaceuticals.
He invents Quaaludes.
Yes, specifically Quaaludes, which is incredible. And then she uses money to open a roller rink, which is just rock and roll. I love that.
So good. Speaking of Quaaludes, shall we jump into Man, I Feel Like a Man? This is Molly and Becca, our moment in the film that made us kind of feel most macho and our most masculine selves.
Gotcha. Okay.
I personally would love to give it to Richard Nixon himself, Dick, if you will, with all I asked for was a simple bugging. Have you paid him off?
That's up there. I liked, I've met yams with more going on than those two.
That's a really good one.
Which is really good, and it's delivered by a member of the White House like executive branch with he's just so done watching these guys. I think they're playing with checkers and like giving people cookies, and he's like, "What the fuck is happening?" Beautiful.
Can I give one to this? Isn't like it's not macho necessarily, but it's very man-like, which is when Woodward and Bernstein are when they're meeting them in the car park, and Will Ferrell has a newspaper but not a pen.
Yes. Bernstein has a pen but not a newspaper.
Yeah.
Or had to write it down. That is masculinity.
Yeah.
Summed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it to the Hello Dolly sequence with the Russian foreign minister.
Yes.
Hello Dolly.
Yeah.
And the idea that all men need is a little bit of weed and then they can stop nuclear war it's a beautiful idea.
It is.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. You know, girls, I think your cookies have just saved the world from nuclear catastrophe.
Yeah.
Incidentally, that was my moment that made me proudest to be an American in this
Was
film.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Mine was when they held out the sign and they said, "You suck, Dick." I stood up. I said, "Yes."
I was tied between two. One is when all the kids on the bus bully them because they were late and made the whole bus miss McDonald's. That is peak American. But in earnest, the moment when they're like getting chased and Arlene says to Betsy, like, they can't keep treating us like we're stupid teenage girls. And Betsy goes, we are stupid teenage girls. And then Arlene kind of gets up and she's like, no, 7 years ago, our founding fathers did. Well, I don't know what they did. They did something, but. And then she like gives a speech about how they're going to take down the president of the United States.
Yeah.
And I was like, that like in earnest is like a very sweet moment of like, you know what? People are underestimating us and people are treating us like we're stupid, but we are more morally correct than all these guys above us.
Yeah.
And we're going to take them down.
You don't need to have any kind of like special education or anything to know right from wrong. And actually this whole movie, like it was really, I felt very seen by it. It felt very nostalgic because I often don't know what's going on with the greater like political landscape. And it made me feel like they're kids and like you can see that they are easily influenced one way or the other in the beginning. Like they don't know who they're supposed to support. They're just like, they're fed like, okay, you're supposed to support your president. So they're going to love their president. And then as the movie goes on and they come into their own a little bit and they start to like listen to their own moral compasses, they form their own opinions and they're like, we don't actually have to support the president. Like we can march to the beat of our own drum. Yeah. And I really loved it. Also, I laughed out loud at when they're watching the resignation speech and they're staring at it. They go, they'll never lie to us again. I actually laughed out loud, and it was really sad for me.
That was tough. That was a tough moment for sure. Yeah.
It's when you're watching a film that was made like 20 plus years ago and you're like, oh, the scandal that was going on then was as bad as we thought it was going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's so much further to fall.
That was a joke about how Clinton had screwed up and actually like, child's play.
Yeah.
I think like that's the funny thing about looking back at Watergate is that like the way we talk about presidential scandal now is through the lens of Watergate. Like you guys, I don't know if you followed this piece of the American news. There was a story that broke like a few weeks ago or maybe 10 years ago. It feels like it, where the Secretary of Defense for the United States.
Oh my God, yeah.
Had like a signal chat and basically disclosed a shit ton of classified information about an ongoing bombing that was happening over like a signal chat. And signal's encrypted, but like I said, there's a lot of strict security you're supposed to be going through when you're dealing with really classified information. And so this was a big scandal and it's called Signalgate.
Yeah.
Because it's like Watergate, and every scandal has a gate at the end.
Oh my God, you're so right. I forgot that's why we call everything gate.
It's because of the Watergate Hotel. And like the funny thing is, like at this point, like Watergate is small potatoes compared to like with the actual like crazy corruption and scandal currently going on in politics. And it is crazy though that it was such a big deal at the moment that it has become the like touch point for all other scandal.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's like a Watergate a week happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Like worse than a Watergate a week. It's like, I could go on forever, but it is like the most disturbing shit will happen and someone will attack a gate at the end of it. And like the Watergate hotel scandal is like a very big scandal, and it goes to like what makes a big presidential scandal a big deal. And it's half that something bad occurred. In this case, the bugging and stealing of information from the Democratic National Committee's office in 1970 I don't remember the precise year, but like that happening. And then what actually is the bigger scandal is like the amount of effort Nixon used to cover it up from the American public.
Right.
Like, and that being like a second scandal of its own is another big portion.
The cover-up was more illegal than the original crime.
Yes, and that is consistently the case. Like they make a reference to it here, but Nixon famously fired the attorney general in that time period. And he, like when John Dean is like standing there, he goes, Mr. President, the Attorney General's waiting upstairs. And he goes, didn't I fire that guy? And he goes, the new one, sir.
Yeah, that was good. I was wondering before we wrap this up, what would be the deleted scene that you guys would like to see? Like what do you wish was in the film?
I want to see whoever raided Betsy's house and stole the cookie recipe. I want to see them trying to recreate the cookies and it not coming out right because there's no weed in it.
Yes, amazing.
I love that.
Amazing.
I definitely want to see the Senate confirmation hearing for Betsy and Arlene to be appointed official White House dog walkers.
And what's the other thing they get? They're like special youth advisors.
Secret youth advisors.
Secret youth advisors. Yeah.
I want to see Arlene interact with Pat when she's at peak crushdom. Like, I want to see her be like the other woman to Pat Nixon.
Yes, there was not enough Pat Nixon in this. I always forget that Pat Nixon exists. I always struggle to think of Richard Nixon as a married man. In my head, he's like a grumpy bachelor. And I always forget about Pat.
Well,
There's
I know that only 9 U.S. presidents were unwed in office because of the New York Times crossword, where that was a clue recently.
There was only one that was actually never married, I think.
Right.
There was several widowers, weren't there?
Yeah.
Wasn't there one guy who wasn't married and he got his niece to do all of the first lady responsibilities? Lee, did you teach me about that?
That was
Buchanan.
Dolly Madison.
Oh, I was going to say James Buchanan because he was the dude he's a terrible president, but he was the guy who brought his friend and companion, who was a man, into the White House with him.
Oh, his friend and
And
companion.
isn't he
Yeah.
the
Yes, his
one-
close personal friend and companion.
He was like
Yes.
a really terrible president and was like kind of responsible for the Civil War breaking out because he just didn't really like get anything sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. Like very much like not the reason the Civil War broke out, because there was a lot of reasons the Civil War broke out, but he is the guy who was in charge when it broke out and was maybe more sympathetic to the South than he should have been in their plights. So, I mean, when Lincoln got elected, that was when the war broke out because Lincoln was like not necessarily as pro the South.
As lenient.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Becca and Molly. This has been so fun. Also, I just have to thank you for bringing this film into my life and into my consciousness.
Yeah.
I feel I will be returning to it often.
Same.
And everyone I've mentioned it to has never heard of it either. I'm so bad. Anyway, this has been so gorgeous. Where can our listeners go and find you?
First of all, thank you so much for having us. It is a pleasure to spread the gospel of Dick. We have a podcast between the two of us, Pod and Prejudice, as was mentioned. Molly has never read any Jane Austen books before. I have. And so together we go through the Jane Austen canon, both book and movie together. Molly, you want to plug where people can find that podcast and everything related to it?
Yeah, so you can find our podcast on pretty much every pod catcher that you might have. And you can follow us on social media at Pod and Prejudice. We're mostly on Instagram. We don't use X anymore. We're not on TikTok. Well, we have a TikTok, but I'm trying to get better about using the TikTok. But I did delete the app when I thought that TikTok was going down and didn't re-download it because I was mad. So anyway, mostly Instagram, Facebook. You can find us there, and you can email us at podandprejudice@gmail.com, or you can go to our website at podandprejudice.com.
Gorgeous. And I did mean to say actually earlier, Arlene, very Marianne coded for any crossover Jane Austen fans, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of a Marianne.
100%.
Bit of a Marianne.
Yeah.
Leigh, I have had a really great time. I feel like we should do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. We are so excited for the rest of our movie episodes. Please stay tuned for our social media for the next movie that we're going to be watching and who we're watching it with. We're Queer Gals Watch, wherever you get your socials. You can also send us an email, queergalswatch@gmail.com. And thank you so much to everyone who supports us on our Patreon as well. We really like we would not be able to come back for our season 3 if people were not supporting us there. So if you want to check out our Patreon, you have the opportunity to like send us discussion questions for the movie episodes and also see our wonderful notes on Dick with Becca and Molly.
Amazing. Well, have a great day, everyone. I for one, am just going to spend the day thinking about Dick.
Same, which I never
But you
do.
You can't let Dick ruin your life, ladies.
No, never.
So true.
Bye.